What's up? We're here with the season 2 review of The Boys. Now it's on Amazon Prime. It just wrapped up last week, and there's a lot to talk about. So, going into season 2, there was a lot of questions of kind of where this was going. Butcher was, who knows, he finally met his wife. What's going to happen to him and his wife and his family? There's a massive story arc about that in the second season. Homelander, how does he react to having a family? What is that like? What is he going to do? All those questions were asked and a lot more. And we had some new characters introduced, including Stormfront, who became a very prominent character over the season. Just so you guys know, we're going to be going into spoilers from this point. So go watch The Boys season 2 and then come back to this episode. We're going to get right into it. So, Connor, what were your initial thoughts on like season 2 as a whole?
As a whole, I thought it lived up to the expectations. It's not that I got a ton of my predictions right, but just like the hype that season 1 built. And even with kind of the staggered release, like the weekly episodes dropping, it mitigated some of it, but it's still The Boys. It's still a great TV show. It still gave you those like jaw-dropping moments. So I'm not like really there's not a ton to critique for this season, in my opinion, unless you're just looking at a couple minor things. But I think those really started to show up kind of towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I noticed is that this season was scaled up. The production was better. There were more locations. Adding Stormfront to the mix was really a great opportunity, and they used Stormfront, or Stumpfront as they now call her, really well. I think the other thing to notice is that Kimiko, her character was really good this season. I really liked how they fleshed her out as a whole. That whole thing with her brother, rest in peace. Uh, I liked everything that had to do with that. I liked how Homelander was portrayed this season. We'll get more into what possibly could happen in season 3 a little bit later on, but I think there's a lot to go into. And so we're gonna start talking about Stormfront, actually, since she was the newest character on the show. Connor, what were your thoughts of Stormfront when you first saw her, and then by the end of the show, how did you feel about her as a character?
So I remember before season 2 started, just to kind of read up on like what to expect. Like I thought they mentioned that like she could be almost like a neo-Nazi, just like an all just that type of background with her. And then I almost like I kind of forgot about it until like, wait a minute, like Stormfront's Liberty, and that's that. But no, I just thought that the gradual upbringing from like, oh, she's this new person to wait a minute, she's probably the most important person in the seven right now, maybe next to Homelander. And just watching that kind of relationship grow while also watching Homelander's just ego manifest, really. I thought that was a great dynamic that they introduced, and she is 100% not dead. We're in agreement with this, right? She's not dead.
She's not dead. I mean, they say in the last episode she's like in a like undisclosed location. There's no way she's dead. Whether she's coming back in season 3 or she's gonna be there just for a second so they can make a joke about her, like Anakin Skywalker style. Um, there's definitely something left with Stormfront. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the way she just kind of lingered around at the end, like we saw her muttering in German, and I think I read somewhere that like she actually was depicting or just like thinking back to one of her favorite moments with her husband and her daughter back in Germany, which was like, okay, am I supposed to feel bad for this like Nazi who wanted to kill like a kid and his mom like 2 seconds ago? But no, she just never died on the ground. So like I'm just assuming that she's like in some cryo chamber or something, just regenerating like a starfish.
but here's the thing: like my question about that is, what it like, who would want her to be regenerating, right? Because there's no way. Homelander. It was his relationship with her is weird because there are moments where he's like really into her, but there are also moments where he's like, "What are you saying?" Right? Like it's clear that he doesn't care about the BS, and it's like he doesn't seem to be a neo-Nazi like she is.
Yeah, he just more so like wants the attention, and like attracted to the relationship. He's attracted to the idea of being in a relationship rather than like the actual person and all her flaws, because he sees right over them. But we know that like, okay, he's not so as hard neo-Nazi, he's just pro Stormfront. So I just think that if I mean, and you said it, like, how did they bring her back? Well, they already brought her back this season as Stormfront. Obviously, we never saw her as Liberty, but they did a good enough job of like covering it up that no one made the connection except the one person in North Carolina who literally couldn't say anything.
Right. I think the other interesting thing about what's going to happen to her is Stan Edgar and what's his play. So let's get a little bit into him and what you thought about him as a character being expanded into season 2, and how he may be connected to Congressman Newman,
Yeah,
who we
I thought
thought
it
was
was
the head topper.
the I thought it was a great replacement sort of for, I think, was it Madeline? That was the blonde woman's name,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a great replacement, like just this stone cold business first, Vought first person who is always will like he'll always look to make a deal though. Like it's never just gonna shoot down anything, but no, it's just you don't know enough about him, which like there's enough of a mystery for one of the like there's not a ton of like truly missed like question marks around these characters around this cast going into the next season, but Stan Edgar is one of the few where you don't totally know what's all up his sleeve just yet.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things was that Black Noir seemed to be directly reporting to Stan Edgar. It seemed like secondary he was a member of the Seven, and first he was working for Stan Edgar. So I'm really curious because they say Black Noir is a vegetable, but I think that's just because he doesn't talk. I have a feeling that he will come back and be fine in season 3, and that's going to play out really. It's going to be curious how it plays out with both Maeve and Starlight both being back in the Seven now. It's like, what is that dynamic going to look like? And I think he's one of the funniest characters in the show. Just his whole physicality. Season 1, where he's Homelander's like, not you, not you. You've been great, Black Noir. And just him crying when he finds out that he was like a manufactured superhero in season 2. Like those little moments from him are great, and I think he's definitely going to be in season 3. But one of the interesting things is Stan Edgar makes a play at the end of season 2 to try and get the kid and to take him out of Homelander's life. But Homelander figures it out. Like, so what is his relationship with Stan Edgar going to be going into season 3?
I always thought that Homelander and Stan Edgar like although they worked for the same team in the same like in a sense they didn't because Homelander is working for his brand whereas Stan Edgar is working for the company. So like we obviously know where each of their priorities lay. And Stan Edgar definitely has the army to go up against Homelander if he wants to. He has the evidence in the kid and Ryan and probably Becca's corpse too. Like if they wanted to just like expose Homelander for who he truly is, and if they do think they can survive that loss of having their main guy, their poster boy, take literally a unrecoverable hit.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm curious about, because if you do that to Homelander, then he has nothing to lose. And
Yeah, I
the
mean,
thing,
I think it was Kripke who said like in an interview after the final episode aired that yeah, Homelander is going to be a homicidal maniac next season. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what tips him off, what pushes him past that breaking point. But it whether it's like okay, it's Stormfront like as like Anakin Skywalker, whether it's Stan Edgar pushing his buttons or something else, maybe even Maeve and Elena get back into that kind of mix. But no, it's definitely going to see a very new Homelander where I would be very surprised if he's like still that kind of that guy for Vought.
yeah, let's get into Maeve, because I think Maeve is a really interesting character this season, especially how she plays it out, because she plays her cards perfectly. But I have a feeling she's going to regret it in season 3. But what are your thoughts on that?
I just have a question. Does she like have a superpower to like sneak up anywhere and no one hear or notice her? Because like in the final episode, she literally just like snuck up in an open field that like no one saw her, not even like Starlight or any of the boys. And then whenever she shows up right as Homelander looks like he's about to kill Butcher, she with like no leave sounds, she just pulls out the blackmail
Right.
card. But I just that's kind of like those are the little plot holes that is like, okay, come on now. But no, I think that she is definitely she played her cards right in season 2. However, I think it's gonna in the first half of the next season, she's gonna like feel comfortable now that okay, Homelander's in check. everything's going well. I can like kind of have my other life with Elena. But I mean, we're both kind of thinking that Homelander's gonna just snap sooner or in the second half or at some point in season 3. I think that spells trouble for her and or Elena.
Yeah. That's I mean, that's kind of the dream. You kind of want to see Maeve fight Homelander, but at the same time, it's not. It's like it's kind of like the NBA. It's LeBron and then everyone else. Let's be honest. Like Homelander's in another tier of superheroes, at least from what we've seen. And I'd be like, I don't know what Maeve has to do for the show anymore. It feels like her character arc has kind of been completed, because she's finally gotten everything she's looking for. So I don't know what her purpose on the show is anymore. So I feel like she's an expendable character.
I think she is too, like, because I feel like she's gonna let her guard down at some point in season 3. She definitely fulfilled everything. Like she lost Elena, and then she kind of gave up on herself and Starlight, and taking down Homelander and Stormfront. Now she comes back in the final episode. She has that aha, like I'm a hero moment, and this is kind of feels like, okay, where do you go from here? And I just have a feeling that okay, the like where you go from here is just you might not go anywhere at all. That's kind of what we saw with Becca.
Right. Yeah. Let's get into Becca and her son, because that was a really interesting dynamic that they had with Homelander in season 2. And some of the stuff that I was really like interested, Homelander is right with some of the stuff he's saying, that like he can't just be completely sheltered from the outside world, because in Homelander knows what makes him the monster he is. And it's interesting because on one hand, like he wants to have the kid and do whatever he wants and be like this homicidal maniac, and you don't want your father to be that. But at the same time, he's the only one who's ever gone through something like that, and he knows like that being sheltering in like a neighborhood over being sheltered in a box with a blanket being like your best friend, um, is completely different, but it's the same principles. And those are the moments where I think Homelander's at his best as a character. And there's that one moment with Homelander and his son where he's actually really sweet to him, after he has that panic attack. And I'm like, oh wow, like maybe he's not all that evil. And it's those moments that I think are really fascinating. But what were your thoughts about the kid and Becca herself?
I thought it was good to make Becca her own character, especially like whenever Billy went to go try and rescue her, she told him no because like she said like, yeah, I reported it to Vought like just because I didn't want you to go on a rampage, which then he did, and now we have a show we're talking about. But I like the use of her character, and I like the kind of exponential growth of the boy, that now we know like he didn't have that much of a role in season 8 other than just kind of being a prop, like like a rope in a tug of war between Becca and Homelander.
Right.
Now he's his own character, even though he still is like he's going to be an asset that Vought is just trying to chase down, and a son that Homelander wants to still father. So it's definitely we're gonna see more Ryan in season 3, and I'm definitely expecting to see him just kind of test out what he's capable of, and then probably tiptoe that line of like, okay, how do I use these responsibly? Because he's a kid, he has no one really to go to with for advice in this situation. So it's really interesting. I think he's almost going to be like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is Butcher and how like he perceives keeping him safe. And he just kind of ships him off. I mean, he gives a great line, of course, but he doesn't want to be a father figure, which is really interesting. And I'll be curious if he's involved with Ryan at all in season 3, or if he's completely like out of the picture and just said, "I'm going to hand it off to people who can protect you," and that's kind of it. Because
I
like, where does
mm,
Butcher have to go?
Yeah, that's like the weird thing with Butcher. It's like the season finale almost felt like a series finale in that it wrapped up so many plot lines. Like everyone left for home. Butcher is kind of just going rogue, which we all expected him to if he didn't end up with Becca. Uh, Huey has a job. Starlight's safely in the 7, and then MM finally gets to go home see his daughter. So it's like there's not a ton that they really give you to bite or chew on going into season 3. But I kind of saw it as the opposite of like Billy just shoving away fatherhood. It's like he knows that he's not in a space where he can father the son, no matter what Becca's last wish was. Because I almost thought that if Homelander didn't step in, he might have attacked or tried to attack Ryan at the end. But he's definitely created somewhat of a bond, whether it's over tragedy or the want to father this kid, because we saw him give the necklace, we saw him give the line. We now know Ryan has one rule in life.
Mhm.
So I think it'll come back. Like we're gonna see that relationship kind of foster towards probably the second half of next season once Ryan's like everyone's probably chasing after him right now.
Yeah, I mean, he is like the world. He is what could change the world, right? Does he
Yeah.
become Homelander or does he become Superman? That's kind of what's going to happen. And I hope there's some point down the line, seasons away, where we get to see, the one final showdown between Homelander and Ryan. That would be kind of the dream. I don't know if the boys would ever go that way because I don't think this is kind of a happy ending type show. But um, moving on, let's talk about Starlight and Huey's character this season. Now, Starlight ends up going back to the Seven, which it honestly kind of feels weird. Um, I don't know why she goes back to the Seven. It doesn't, to me, I saw her back there and I was like, what? Like Maeve, I get. Maeve is kind of like, it's where she's been her whole life. Starlight's been like, yeah, this is a bunch of BS. I don't know why I'm here. Like, I shouldn't be here. And then she just goes back. So, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, many of you said it, like being a part of the Seven is a part of her character. It's her identity. Whereas Starlight, almost since the beginning, has been anti the Seven once she got a peek behind the curtain. So maybe it's her just going there to be like keep them in check because everyone now knows that she's the one who leaked it and she's capable of destroying other members of the Seven, other assets of Vought, not just like physically destroying, but destroying their stock because Vought cares so much more about just their public image, like stock, pharma, everything like that. So it's really an interesting choice, especially because we saw like really the boys disband. So it's not like, okay, Starlight, you're going to be our mole, report back to us. Like there's no one to report back to. So I guess she's just going there probably because she'll be bored if she doesn't.
Right. It's just, it kind of feels like there's not enough motivation, but maybe there's a plot reason for season 3. That's probably why that she's back in the Seven. Here's the interesting thing. Now, Black Noir is out of the picture right now. We don't know if in season 3 they'll just have him be back or not. But Stormfront is gone. So who's going to replace Stormfront? Because we know A Train's back because Shockwave got popped. But who's going to replace Stormfront?
Well, it's an interesting question just because we don't know what's going to go on with the Deep now, and I almost have a sense that he's going to be accused for that character's killing. I forget what's his name, Sinclair.
Oh, the guy, yeah, the head of the Church of the Collective.
Yeah, I have a feeling that he's almost going to be framed for it just because he was the last one to be seen with him. Like he walks out of the office because obviously no one knows it's Newman.
Right.
And so I just have a feeling that, okay, it might be linked back to him 3 episodes into the season. And we might have to see the Deep just like either A, working to save his reputation and defend his innocence, or B, like really go to work and is like, okay, who did this? Because I'm innocent. I want to try and get back on the Seven, not go to jail or get tried for anything, you know?
Right. One of the interesting things is we've seen the Deep and he always like he doesn't seem to be that powerful, even though he can like he's like basically like a waterbender. And I still think the most unused thing in the boys is that he can't like suck the water out of someone. Like humans are 70% water. Like if you had a scene where he just takes the water out of someone, I'm sorry, it would just be like so the boys to do something like that. Something I need to see. But let's talk about the Deep more as a character and his progression this season. To me, it felt really out of place. Like he really didn't do anything. Like it's just like, okay, I'm gonna like become like I'm gonna be a better person in the Church of Collective, and then this is a bunch of BS. It just felt like him and A Train were on the sideline, and they didn't have like real character progression through the season.
I can see that, as I also kind of view this season for the Deep as a very long build up towards season 3, just because like obviously we saw his character take a huge tumble in season 1, and now is like he's building up his character, but at the end he doesn't know who he is anymore, and he's broke too after signing off his bank account to the church. So I feel like now in season 3 we're going to see like true kind of not necessarily rock bottom, but like uncut, because we in season 1 he was this egomaniac. In season 2 he was kind of brainwashed. Now he's really almost got nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that they're probably playing the long game with him. Now, A Train, he plays an integral part to the plot because he's the one who exposes Stormfront because he's getting kicked out of the Seven. And the beginning and the end of the season feel like he really has an important role, but it feels like he kind of gets lost in the middle. Like, I don't know, there are episodes where you're just like, okay, he's doing nothing. Like he's just kind of there. And they're like these long scenes where he's just kind of there doing nothing. And I don't know, it felt a little out of place to me.
Yeah, I feel like the whole him getting kicked out of the Seven was a little dragged out, though the moments, the interactions between him and Stormfront were like really the first hints that, wait a minute, this chick might be a Nazi or a racist
Right.
at the bare minimum. So like those were definitely integral, but all those scenes where it's him going over the lines with the director, or just him like pleading with anyone at Vought to stay in, it definitely showed the desperation there, because again, like kind of how Maeve is, that's his character. Being a part of the Seven, being the fastest man in the world is his character. And if he doesn't have that, what does he have? So I understand that. But now, like, okay, he made good in a sense with giving the information to Huey and Starlight. So now he's almost even with them. What more does he have to fulfill, really?
Right. I mean, that leads into him possibly being a character who can kick the bucket in season 3. Especially, I feel like if Homelander finds out that he's the one who leaked the information and like that whole thing led to basically the death of Stormfront, he might go berserk. Um, as far as just killing people, superheroes in the Seven that have like done him wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts overall on not just season 2, but what did you find wrong with season 2?
Season 2, there were a couple episodes where you could either A, see what's coming, or B, there were just like minor logic plot holes. I think the main one that noticed them in was the one at the mental facility, or the that hospital where we got introduced to Lamplighter. It just felt like, okay, this is your kind of generic like lockdown episode where you meet this enemy and then all of a sudden you bond with him, and at the end he's like, oh, he's a good guy now. But how did, like, just a couple of the plot holes, like I'm gonna name, is like, how did Stormfront not see a van literally parked in the middle of a field right next to the facility? How did no one in the facility not see that van? How did no one see like Starlight just blast a hole through that fence? There was just like a couple weird things. So, and it didn't ruin the episode by any means, but it definitely distracted from what you wanted to do with, like, okay, they're actually breeding these guys pretty much. Like they're just injecting them, they're creating them just way in very inhumane ways. And I'm almost caught up on that and the like hilariously bad product placement.
Wait, are you talking about the Fresca?
Oh no, I'm talking about the Axe body spray
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
I
the
was gonna say,
L'Oreal for Kids shampoo.
I was gonna say, I'll defend that Fresca product placement to the end because I thought that was a hilarious bit. Same thing with the
That
almond
being
joy.
like the Deep's mic drop of a line while walking out of the church being F Fresca, that was like, that might have honestly been my favorite line in the entire season, just because like at that point I loved the product placement no matter how bad it was. And it was just like, okay, they leaned into it 100%. This is amazing. Like, hats
Yeah,
off to them.
yeah. All of the like annoyance of the Fresca was perfect for that one moment where he's the audience right there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of like to know if like they didn't realize how bad the product placement was until they went back and like watched the first 2 or 3 episodes. It's like, all right, rather than redo it, let's just like lean into it because that seems very boys-ish where they just like they can find that humor in weird ways that you're not expecting and just like Black Noir like becoming like having a severe allergic reaction to an almond joy while in the middle of his biggest fight. That's just one of the little things that you love.
Black Noir was a beast in that fight. That's my favorite fight scene from season 2 because I like how the story plays out in the final episode where it's like girls really do get it done when Frenchie says that. I was dying. It was like the perfect timing. But that fight scene itself just felt kind of lackluster. You know what I mean? Like for all the
Yeah,
build up.
because all we saw was a couple uses of the superpowers here and there, like oh, Starlight used the Flash, or oh, Stormfront like zaps someone, then like Kamiko just snaps her neck back in place. But yeah, I felt like that kind of left a little bit to be desired, and I guess that's what you get for just putting them in an open field. But also shout out to Frenchie for literally announcing their entire game plan for going to get an RPG. Like I think anyone in like a half-mile radius could have heard that.
Yeah.
And you just that's just like one of those little things. It's like, okay, as soon as he said that, like, come on, the RPG is the only chance, like, wow, I'm sure Stormfront definitely isn't gonna focus on the RPG in the truck right now.
Right. Yeah. I felt it just that moment felt like there it's so frustrating because the boys is so good like as a whole, but there are little moments that like stop it from being the next level that I think it was in season 1 and it can be in season 3. But as we wrap it up, what are the things that you are most looking forward to or that you most want to see in season 3?
At the top of the list for anyone has to be a homicidal maniac Homelander, just because how like we're kind of the question is like not how much but how far, like where he I think the line is going to be completely erased. He's just going to lose all sanity whatsoever, and really it's just who's going to be in his warpath, and also who can like really kill Homelander, because we saw Newman is seems to be the only one who can kill a soup, just because we saw the other speedy soup, we saw his head pop off.
Right.
So we know Homelander obviously can't laser Stormfront, but it's just a weird dynamic, like how do you kill these other soups, because they obviously have to have an end, but how does that come, when, from who?
Yeah, I agree. I think Homelander is like this wild card who is going to go ballistic, and I think what's going to keep the show kind of dynamic and unpredictable because everyone was like wrapped up really nicely in the end of season 2. So going into season 3, stuff has to go crazy. You know, you have to get Frenchie and Kimiko to come back from exploring the world and that sort of stuff. So I'm really excited for that. But that wraps up our review of season 2 of The Boys. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you thought of season 2. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.